creation. So then, going back into the books of Kings, and we'll get into the scripture around, but in Kings, David, everybody knows who King David is, right? He slew a bear, he slew a lion, he slew a giant, okay? A great man became king. But he had blood, but he also was an adulterer, he was a killer, and he was a hypocrite like everybody else. He was a great man, but he was quick to ask for forgiveness. So one day they brought the Ark of the Covenant back because the Philistines had taken it because they lost King Saul. And so they brought the Ark of the Covenant, and he danced before because he was so grateful they got the Ark of the Covenant from the Philistines. And so King David said, you know what? I am going to build a permanent temple, like a synagogue, like what we have a church here. But this is going to be a temple, and God has said, this is how I want it. It says, I'm going to build a temple that we can put the Ark of the Covenant, and that people can come here and not have, because before it was only in a tent. They would pick up and move in another tent, but it's going to be something permanent, the temple of the Lord. And God said to, great idea there, David, but David, you have blood on your hands. It can't come from you. What? That probably hurt David, but he understood why. So when David, he had many sons, many daughters. One of his sons, and everybody knows this, is Solomon. After King David, Solomon became king, and he was the wisest man that ever lived. Wise, smart, full of knowledge of God, because he asked, well, how can I rule this kingdom for you, Lord, this people? So he asked for wisdom from God, and God gave him wisdom. So now we're going to get to the scripture, and it says, the first temple of the Lord. And this is found, if you will look in 1 Kings chapter 1. 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 1. Now, 1 Kings chapter 6, all of it talks about how to make the temple. It's because God was very specific. I wanted this big, this tall, these chambers, these rooms, what's in it, what's not in it, what's going to be in it, who can go in it, who cannot, the inner courts, the outer courts, how it's going to be. He was specific. But we're just going to read the very first verse. And it says, in the 480th year, how many years? 480 years after the Israelites came out of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon, King Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month of Ziv, the 2nd month, he began to build the temple of the Lord. So if you keep reading, the whole chapter talked about, and actually Ezra and all these other chapters, books, they tell you how God, because it wasn't just done in a day. It took time to build it, years to build it. But in 1 Kings chapter 6, it tells you the very first temple that was erected, built for the Lord. Basically the first church of God, that was built. So let me just say this. The first temple in the Bible, also known as what? Solomon's temple, was built by King Solomon in Jerusalem, and in construction is described in the books of Kings. In the Hebrew Bible, specifically within the book of Kings, details the construction of the temple of King Solomon, who placed the Ark of the Covenant in the Holy of Holies. The temple was built in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, where, according to the biblical tradition, Abraham prepared to sacrifice his son Isaac. Now, this was very... Jerusalem was also known as Salem before it was Jerusalem. Now, everybody knows Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and the 12 tribes of Israel. Well, do y'all remember where Abraham had his first son from Sarah at 100 years old, and Sarah was 90, and he had his son, and then God told him that he wanted him to sacrifice his only son, Isaac. And so Abraham was very sad, but he was obedient, took Isaac by himself onto a hilltop at the top of the mountain, and made the rocks and the wood, and then tied up Isaac, and they was about to sacrifice Isaac to the Lord, until the Lord sent an angel and said, stop, do not, now we know. And so God blessed him, and he did not sacrifice, and provided a ram for him to sacrifice instead. Well, the place where Abraham, according to scholars, where Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac, that is at Mount Moriah. That is where Abraham was going to sacrifice and dedicate it to the Lord Isaac, his first son. And that is the place where, I don't know, when you see Jerusalem and you see the Dome of the Rock, you also see the golden, which that is not it. That is actually a Muslim mosque. They say either right under it or right next to it is the place where Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac. Is called Mount Moriah. So in that place, that is where the temple of the Lord, or Solomon's temple, was built. And that's where the Ark of the Covenant was put on. The temple serves as the center of worship for the Israelites to house the Ark of the Covenant, a sacred chest containing the Ten Commandments. Now, so everybody basically knows when that was built. Now, the first temple was also destroyed in 586 BC during the siege of Jerusalem by the Neo-Babylonian Empire.